Your body starts shutting down after 72 hours without food. Your muscles begin consuming themselves. Your brain fog becomes so thick you can't think straight enough to find your next meal. Your hands shake too badly to hold a cup. Yet right now, across America, over 500,000 people are surviving on less than $5 a week for food. Not thriving, not eating well, surviving. And here's what makes no sense. Most of them aren't starving to death. So what do they know that the rest of us don't?
Most people think about hunger as a simple problem with a simple solution. You're hungry, you buy food, you eat. But when you've got $5 for an entire week, conventional grocery shopping becomes a death sentence. Walk into any supermarket with that budget, and you're looking at maybe 2 days of food, 3 if you stretch it. That's because the entire food retail system is engineered for people with money. Unit pricing, bulk discounts, fresh produce that spoils in 3 days. It's all designed around the assumption that you can afford to shop multiple times per week and store perishables in a working refrigerator. When you're living in a tent or a car or a shelter bed, you might lose access to tomorrow. None of that infrastructure exists. The surprising principle that changes everything is this. Food survival isn't about nutrition charts or meal planning. It's about calorie mathematics and access timing. A person experiencing homelessness doesn't ask, "Is this healthy?" They ask, "Will this keep me alive until I can eat again?" That shift in thinking unlocks an entire parallel food economy that most Americans never see. But even understanding that principle creates its first massive complication. You're now competing with every other person who figured it out, and there's only so much free food to go around. So what do experienced street survivors do? The first food source veterans leverage isn't buying anything at all. It's soup kitchens, and most cities have more of them than you'd think. In New York City alone, over 500 different locations serve free meals every single day. The Grand Central Food Program delivers between 800 and 1,200 meals nightly to 22 stops around the city, and they haven't missed a single night in 40 years. These aren't just emergency services, they're reliable infrastructure. The weighted average cost per meal at shelters in the greater Boston area is $1.03, which means these organizations are stretching donated food further than any individual ever could. Experienced homeless individuals build their entire weekly schedule around soup kitchen timing. Trinity Services and Food for the Homeless in the East Village serves 200,000 meals annually, and veterans know exactly when to arrive. Too early and you're waiting in the cold burning calories. Too late and the food runs out. But here's the limitation. Most soup kitchens only serve 1 meal per day, and almost none of them serve on Sundays. That means you've solved lunch, but you still need breakfast and dinner 6 days a week, plus all 3 meals on Sunday. A single daily soup kitchen meal might provide 600 to 800 calories, but the human body needs between 1,800 and 2,400 calories per day just to maintain basic function. You're running a 1,200 calorie daily deficit, which means your body starts cannibalizing itself within a week. The solution veterans use is stacking. They don't just know one soup kitchen, they know 5 or 6. They map out routes where they can hit breakfast at one location, lunch at another, and sometimes catch dinner at a third. But even that only works if you've got enough time and energy to travel between locations. And here's where things get dangerous. Spending 3 hours walking between meal services burns 600 calories, which means you're back to breaking even. Now here's where it gets interesting. The second layer in the survival strategy is food pantries, but they work completely differently than soup kitchens. Food pantries don't give you prepared meals. They give you ingredients. St. Peter's in Manhattan operates 5 days a week from 10 a.m. to noon, serving predominantly low-income families. Clients can only use the pantry twice per month and they need a referral. But here's what most people miss. On Saturdays from 10 to 11:30 a.m., no referral is needed. That Saturday window is when street veterans show up. The typical food pantry bag contains about 12 to 15 pounds of groceries, which might include canned vegetables, pasta, rice, bread, and if you're lucky, some protein like canned tuna or peanut butter. One New York church now averages 600 bags of food distributed each week,
which is up 30% just in recent months.
The mathematics work out like this. A single pantry bag, properly rationed, can provide maybe 1,000 calories per day for 5 days. That's still not enough, but it's building towards something. But here's the catch that rookies miss. Everything a food pantry gives you requires preparation. Rice needs cooking, pasta needs boiling water, canned vegetables need a can opener at minimum and heating if you want them palatable. When you're living without a kitchen, without a camping stove, maybe without any cooking capability at all, those ingredients are nearly worthless. One person in Buffalo described it perfectly. Some places throw out day-old food that's still wrapped up, and they'll save it for me and my friends, and we'll split it up between each other. He's not talking about food pantries. He's talking about what comes next. Here's the thing most people don't realize. The amount of perfectly edible food that businesses throw away every single day would feed every homeless person in America 3 times over. The EPA reports that food waste is the single most common material landfilled in the United States, comprising 24% of all landfill content. More than 1/3 of all food produced in America is never eaten. A single grocery store in an upscale neighborhood throws out between 200 and 400 pounds of food daily. The veteran method for accessing this food is called dumpster diving, though people who do it seriously call it urban foraging. The best locations are grocery stores in wealthy areas, because high-income shoppers won't accept imperfect produce or products near expiration dates. Absolute Bagels, Garden of Eden, and Silver Moon in Manhattan's Upper West Side are all reportedly consistent sources. The timing is everything. Stores typically dump their unsaleable inventory after close, which means the optimal diving window is between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. Go too early and you're trespassing while staff are still present. Go too late and other divers have already picked through everything. In colder months, frozen and refrigerated items dumped at night stay preserved, which means you might find pounds of chicken breast, pork chops, or packaged meats that are perfectly safe for consumption. One diver reported finding several pounds of frozen lobster tails and a Wagyu strip steak in a single night. The food is packaged, sealed, and exactly the same as what's on the store shelves, just past the arbitrary sell-by date. But here's where it gets dangerous. Many cities have responded to dumpster diving by having stores deliberately destroy food before disposal. Some pour bleach on discarded items to make them inedible. Others lock their dumpsters or place them behind fences. There have been arrests in the UK, Belgium, and France of people dumpster diving, though charges are typically dropped. The legal status in most American cities exists in a grey area. The food is technically the store's property until the trash company picks it up, which makes taking it potentially theft. Here's something most people never consider. Even if you're successfully cycling between soup kitchens, food pantries, and occasional dumpster diving, you still haven't solved the hardest problem. How do you get enough protein to prevent your body from breaking down its own muscle tissue? The human body needs roughly 50 grams of protein daily just to maintain basic cellular function, and physical activity increases that requirement substantially. Someone walking 10 miles per day between food sources might need 75 to 100 grams. The soup kitchens help, but studies of shelter meals in Boston show they commonly receive donated leftover pastries, pizzas, and desserts from local restaurants. High calorie, sure, but protein deficient. In San Francisco, researchers found that shelter meals are routinely deficient in fiber, calcium, potassium, and vitamins A and E, while containing excess fat. This is when that $5 weekly budget becomes critical, because even a small amount of money deployed strategically can fill the protein gap that free sources leave open. The cheapest protein source in any grocery store is eggs. A dozen eggs typically costs between $2 and $3 and provides 72 grams of protein total, which is more than a day's requirement. But eggs require refrigeration and cooking, which puts them out of reach for many street survivors. The second option is canned tuna. A 5-ounce can contains 30 grams of protein and costs about $1. 5 cans would give you 150 grams of protein for the entire week for just $5 total.
But here's the complication. Canned tuna contains mercury, and health guidelines recommend adults limit consumption to just a few servings per week. Eating it daily creates long-term heavy metal toxicity that damages the nervous system. The veteran workaround is rotating protein sources. 2 cans of tuna at $1 each. 1 jar of peanut butter at $2, providing 60 grams of protein. And spending the remaining $2 on dried beans, which can be cooked if you've got access to any heat source. But that rotation only works if you can store the food somewhere it won't be stolen. And theft of food among homeless populations is one of the things almost nobody talks about. Now here's where things get clever. There's a third food source that sits between buying and scavenging: asking. After restaurants close, many still have food that didn't sell but is perfectly good. A person sitting outside playing ukulele described, "I can sit around and play ukulele and sing songs, and then people will give you food and money. I remember sitting in San Diego sometimes just piled up with Chinese food boxes and pizza. That's not begging for money to buy food. That's receiving food directly from strangers who have extra." Some people call this busking for meals instead of busking for money. The mathematical advantage is obvious. You're getting 1,000-calorie restaurant meals that someone else already paid $15 for, and it cost you nothing except the time to perform. But it requires being in high foot traffic areas where restaurants with leftovers are common, and those areas typically have the most aggressive anti-loitering laws. The alternative asking strategy is approaching restaurant workers directly at closing time. Keith McHenry, co-founder of Food Not Bombs, said you can actually just talk to store owners instead of diving in dumpsters. Many restaurants would rather give unsold food to someone who asks than throw it away. But corporate policies often prohibit this because of liability fears. The worker has to be willing to break the rules, which means building relationships with specific people at specific locations. That's another form of access timing, knowing which person works which shift and being there when they're taking out the trash. But this only works for maybe 2 or 3 meals per week, and it creates dependency on individual relationships that can disappear if that worker changes jobs or stops being sympathetic. But here's where it gets serious. All these survival strategies share one massive vulnerability: seasonality. Everything that works in summer becomes exponentially harder in winter. Soup kitchens are still there, but walking 2 miles in 20-degree weather to reach them burns 400 calories and exposes you to frostbite risk if your clothing isn't adequate. Food pantries still distribute, but now everyone needs the Saturday no referral slot because more people are desperate, which means food runs out faster. Dumpster diving becomes actively dangerous because you're outside in the cold for extended periods, and frozen hands can't sort through bags efficiently. John Hoffman wrote about this exact problem. Most homeless have no capacity for the long-term storage of perishable goods. After all, there are no freezers under bridges, and sustained cold weather drives the homeless southward or inside. Winter changes the entire calculation, because now you need not just food, but warm food that your body can use to generate heat. Cold sandwiches from a food pantry don't work the same way hot soup from a kitchen does. Your body burns additional calories just trying to raise cold food to body temperature for digestion. This is when Dollar Tree and other dollar stores become essential, because $1.25 can buy a can of soup that you can heat over a candle if you have nothing else. One person described making flatbreads from just flour, water, and salt on any hot surface. A $1 bag of flour will make a week's supply of flatbread in minutes without the need for a mixer, oven, or bowls. The technique is legitimate. Flatbreads cook in under a minute on a very hot surface like a car hood in the sun or a heated metal surface. You're converting $1 into roughly 1,600 calories of carbohydrates, which is cheaper than almost anything else available. But flatbreads alone won't provide protein, and that $5 budget is now split between protein sources and carbohydrate bases. But managing nutrition is only half the equation. And here's what almost nobody outside the homeless community understands. Dental health becomes the single biggest barrier to eating within 6 months on the street. Studies of homeless populations show extraordinarily high rates of dental problems, often driven by lack of access to dental care, combined with diets high in sugar from donated pastries and desserts.
Without functional teeth, suddenly half of the $5 food budget options disappear. You can't eat apples from a food pantry. You can't chew tough dried beans even if you cook them. Granola bars become impossible. One commenter on a homeless resource guide wrote, "Why would they buy rice if they're homeless? They won't be able to cook it, and there's nothing for them to clean their gums with after eating apples." That observation captures something crucial. Homeless food strategies must account for dental realities. The veteran solution is prioritizing soft foods. Canned refried beans at $1 per can provide 400 calories and 14 grams of protein and can be eaten directly from the can without teeth. Bananas at 30 cents each offer 100 calories and require no chewing. Peanut butter can be eaten directly with a finger if necessary. Canned tuna mixed with mayonnaise packets from fast food restaurants creates a soft, protein-rich paste. The food pantry items that become most valuable aren't the ones with the most nutrients, but the ones you can actually consume with compromised dental health. Mashed potatoes from a dollar store box can be prepared with just water and eaten soft. Oatmeal requires only hot water and becomes completely soft within minutes. This is why experienced homeless individuals specifically request these items at food pantries and pass over harder foods that volunteers assume are better. Nobody survives $5 per week food budgets alone. That's just reality. The most successful food survival strategies involve small groups who pool resources and knowledge. One person knows which dumpster is best on Tuesday nights. Another person knows a restaurant worker who saves leftovers. A third person has a camping stove and can cook for the group. They share information about which soup kitchens are serving what meals and which food pantries have the shortest lines. Some form informal meal trading networks, where someone with too many canned goods from a pantry bag trades with someone who managed to dumpster dive fresh produce. The psychological benefit of communal eating is harder to quantify, but no less real. Eating alone on the street is demoralizing in ways that compound over time. Sharing a meal, even if it's canned beans heated over a camping stove, creates social connection that helps people maintain hope. Safe Horizon operates drop-in centers for homeless youth, where lunch is provided. But clients can also receive dinner if they attend a group session. That's trading 45 minutes of participation for an additional 600-calorie meal, which is an extraordinary return on time investment. The check-in systems matter too. When you're part of a small group, someone notices if you don't show up to the usual meeting spot. That matters when you're dealing with medical emergencies, police encounters, or simply getting too weak to move. A person who collapses from malnutrition while alone might not be found for hours. A person who collapses while part of a network gets help within minutes. So what have we learned? Eating on $5 a week isn't about one magic solution. It's about layering strategies and building systems. You hit the soup kitchen for lunch. You time your arrival at the food pantry for Saturday when no referral is required. You scout dumpster diving locations during daylight and return at night when stores have thrown out their expired stock. You spend $2 on canned tuna for protein and $1 on a bag of flour for flatbreads and save the remaining $2 for whatever emergency food need emerges midweek. You find other people doing the same thing and you share information and resources and occasionally meals. You rotate your protein sources to avoid mercury toxicity. And you prioritize soft foods if your dental health is compromised. And you learn which fast food restaurants have the most accessible condiment packets. Human creativity and engineering principles show up in the strangest places. The fact that hundreds of thousands of people are successfully navigating extreme food insecurity using these precise optimization strategies doesn't make poverty acceptable. But it does reveal something important about human resourcefulness and the hidden infrastructure of mutual aid that exists in every city. Food survival on $5 a week isn't a lifestyle anyone should have to engineer. It's a testament to what people are forced to figure out when systems fail them.